Story number 1. The Silence of the Void Recollections of the Artemis Nightmare. I remember it like it was yesterday, despite the years that have stretched between then and now. The memory lingers, icy and sharp as the winter of 2001, when the suburbs outside of Carson City became the unlikely epicenter for an otherworldly horror. My name is Eli, and at the time, I was a fledgling documentary filmmaker, hungry for a story that would launch my career into the stratosphere. And it did, but not in the way I'd ever have wanted. It started with a local news snippet, a mere curiosity at first. The crew of an interstellar vessel, Artemis, all under the age of 30, had embarked on a groundbreaking mission to the edge of our solar system. But their venture spiraled into disaster as they encountered a zone of silence, a void where the fabric of space and time frayed and twisted into incomprehensibility. As I delved deeper, the gravity of the story pulled me in. The crew consisted of brilliant minds: Sophia, the astrophysicist; Lucas, the engineer; Ava, the biologist; and Jaden, the captain. They were the creme de la creme, youthful geniuses who had set out to kiss the stars, only to embrace oblivion instead. Their communications with Earth became increasingly erratic. At first, it was technical jargon about time dilation and spatial anomalies. But then, the messages twisted into a cacophony of haunting cries and frenzied whispers. They spoke of shadows flickering through the ship, of reflections not matching their movements, of an overwhelming presence that consumed their sanity. I remember driving to the houses of their families, my hands shaking as I held my camera, capturing the grief and the bewilderment. There were exorcism deaths among the crew, reported with hushed tones and tearful eyes. Sophia's mother told me of her daughter's last transmission, how she'd screamed about being claimed by something ancient and malevolent. The local clergy were divided. Some believed the crew had stumbled upon a celestial devil, others thought they were simply hallucinating. But then, unexplained deaths started happening here, in the suburbs. People connected to the project, onlookers, even skeptics, all found dead with their faces locked in a silent scream. It was as if the void the Artemis had pierced reached out to claim more souls. Rumors swirled of devil worship within the Artemis team, that they had intentionally sought out the darkest corner of space. The investigation uncovered unsettling drawings and manuscripts within Lucas's possession, cryptic symbols and incantations hinting at a sinister fascination. It happened to me in an abandoned lot, where the locals claimed to see figures dancing in the night. I was walking, camera in hand, when the air turned cold, and my breath became a mist. The ground beneath me felt unsteady, as if reality itself was wavering. I saw them, spectral silhouettes twisting in a macabre ballet. When I looked through the camera, nothing. But with my own eyes, insanity. The final piece of my documentary was the most chilling, a recovered audio log from the Artemis. The crew's voices were a chorus of madness, speaking in languages not meant for human tongues. In the background, a low hum, the sound of the void itself, an abyss that sang with the voices of 1,000 lost souls. I can't explain what happened to the Artemis, or why those connected to it met such gruesome ends. But I can't deny the otherworldly terror that haunts my dreams, the silence of that void that lingers in the back of my mind, threatening to spill forth into madness. The documentary aired to a skeptical public, but it became a cult phenomenon, a creepypasta for the digital age, a cautionary tale of cosmic horror. They say the Artemis is still out there, a ghost ship wandering the stars, its crew trapped in an eternal loop of their own demise. And as for me, I got my wish. The story launched my career, but at what cost? I can still hear the hum sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, a reminder that somewhere in the cold vastness of space, the Artemis and its crew endure their unending nightmare. And in the suburbs of Carson City, where reality seems thinner, we all tread lightly, afraid that one day the silence will come for us too. Story number 2. The Oxygen Garden Breaths of the Damned. The year 2002 was a time of reckoning for those of us in the quiet town of Harrowsfield. The suburban calm, a facade hiding whispers of the void and the chill of space that clung to the shadows. My name is Claire, and I was a young investigative journalist then, drawn to a story that would shake the very foundations of my reality. I was researching isolated incidents of lung-related illnesses in Harrowsfield when I stumbled upon a pattern that would lead me to a cosmic horror, a story that still coils around my thoughts like the spores at the center of this nightmare. It was at the local clinic where I first heard the hushed conversations about patients with inexplicable respiratory conditions. They were young, all under 30, vibrant and full of life until they began to cough up dark, moss-like substances. The doctors were baffled, unable to trace the source of the infection. That was until I met Jenna, a botanist and former crew member of the long-haul spaceship called the Haven. Jenna's hands trembled as she recounted her tale. "The oxygen garden was our sanctuary," she said, her voice a whisper that struggled for air. "Rows of lush greenery providing us life, turning our CO2-filled exhales into sweet, breathable oxygen." She told me how an alien spore, undetected upon departure, began to infest the garden. A speck of cosmic dust that morphed into a death sentence. The plants wilted, blackened, and crumbled to ash. The crew frantically attempted to save the greenery, but as the oxygen levels dropped, paranoia seeped in. Their sanctuary became a suffocating tomb. As I was interviewing Jenna, her coughing fit overtook her speech, and the room grew tense. I could see the fear in the eyes of the medical staff, the same dread mirrored in the hollow gazes of the other patients. "The spores," Jenna gasped, "they found a new home, inside us." That revelation sent a chill down my spine, the kind that tells you this story is more than you bargained for. I dug deeper, driven by a mix of terror and determination. The crew had turned on each other, fighting for the last remnants of clean air. Surveillance footage from the spaceship, leaked to me by a whistleblower, showed the horror in stark, unyielding detail. People whom I've come to know through photos and desperate journal entries, clawing at their throats, eyes wide with madness. I remember walking through Harrowsfield at night, the weight of the story pressing down on me. The air felt thick, and every breath I took was a silent prayer that it would not carry my doom. My investigation led me to Leo, a former medical officer on the Haven, now a recluse haunted by the shadows of his dead crewmates. He spoke of secret rites performed in the dwindling oxygen, devil worship born of desperation. They had believed the spore was a sentient being, one they could appease. Leo escaped the madness, only to find himself in a new hell on Earth. As the story spread, my documentary morphed into a macabre viral sensation. The town of Harrowsfield became synonymous with the breath of the void creepypasta. People whispered about the cursed crew of the Haven, and how the spores had supposedly spread to our planet. It happened to me one evening, the realization that this was beyond my control. I was sitting at my desk, going through my notes, when a fit of coughing overtook me. A moment of pure terror, the kind that sinks its claws into your soul, leaving scars that never quite heal. I was lucky, it turned out to be nothing more than a scare, but it served as a grim reminder of the story that I had woven into the fabric of my life. Harrowsfield has never been the same since. And neither have I. The gardens around town seem to wilt a little quicker, the air feels just a tad too heavy, and every breath is a reminder of the fragile line between life and the infinite void. As for Jenna and Leo, they're gone now, claimed by the very horror that they had escaped in space. Their last breath's a testament to the oxygen garden that was meant to sustain life but instead brought death. And I, the bearer of their tale, remain, forever changed by the spores that took root in our fears. Story number 3. The gravity well echoes from the abyss. The shadows of 2003 still linger over the small suburb of Edgefield, a whisper of darkness that clings to the edges of the forgotten mines on its outskirts. My name is Noah, and I was a writer obsessed with unearthing tales that the world dared not speak of. But nothing I had written before could prepare me for the narrative that I would come to know as the gravity well. The story began when a mining spaceship, the Ulysses, designed to skim precious materials from the edges of black holes, reported a system malfunction. It was a venture led by youth, the ship manned by a crew of brilliant minds, all under the age of 30, eager to carve their names into the annals of cosmic history. I remember walking through the mines of Edgefield, the chill of the subterranean world seeping into my bones, as I sought inspiration. That's where I met Alex, a former engineer of the Ulysses, his eyes haunted by things unseen, his words a tapestry of terror and wonder. Alex spoke of the ship's descent into the gravity well, how the overwhelming force stretched and twisted the vessel like a plaything of the gods. Time fractured, a mirror shattered into a million reflections of past, present, and future. He described visions of his childhood alongside premonitions of his own death. He watched his younger self played by a creek, only to blink and see the specter of his mother weeping over a grave that bore his name. I was driving to meet another crew member, Eliza, when Alex's words truly began to warp my reality. The road ahead seemed to elongate, the horizon a distant mirage that fled as I approached. I knew then that the story of the Ulysses was not one of simple mechanical failure, but a Pandora's box of cosmic horror. Eliza, the Ulysses geologist, recounted her experience within the gravity well with a voice that trembled like a plucked string. She spoke of seeing Earth from above, a vibrant blue marble, then of watching it die, consumed by fire and darkness, all within the blink of an eye. The crew had encountered their personal demons in the distorted flow of time. Some whispered of loved ones long dead, speaking to them across the void. Others recounted moments where they seemed to slip into alternate realities, living lives that were not their own. As the investigation deepened, I uncovered chilling accounts of exorcism deaths on board. The ship's psychologist, Marco, was found contorted in a circle of salt, his mouth open in an eternal scream. They said he'd been trying to rid himself of a demon that the gravity well had awakened within him. The tales grew darker, seeping into the consciousness of Edgefield. Unexplained deaths began to occur, individuals with no apparent connection to the Ulysses found dead, their eyes black as the void that had claimed the ship. Rumors of devil worship surfaced, cryptic symbols discovered etched into the mine walls, similar to those described in the fragmented logs of the Ulysses. Some started to believe that the crew had not merely fallen victim to a gravitational anomaly but had been chosen for a darker purpose. It happened to me in a dream, or at least, I pray it was a dream. I stood on the bridge of the Ulysses, the stars outside warping into streaks of light as the black hole's hunger tore at the ship. I felt the pull, the inexorable slide into nothingness, and heard the whispers of a billion lost souls echoing from the abyss. I woke to the haunting realization that the gravity well was more than a story, it was an omen, a look into the eye of something eternal and utterly alien. The documentary I pieced together became a sensation, a creepypasta whispered in the dark corners of the internet. But here, in Edgefield, where the ground hides the bones of old mines and deeper secrets, we know that the gravity well was no fiction. It was a glimpse into the heart of darkness, one that continues to watch us from where the light cannot escape, waiting to pull us into its depths. Story number 4. The Last Transmission Whispers from the Red. The summer of 2004 was relentless, with the sun beating down on the quiet suburb of Redgrove like a harbinger of the fever that would soon grip us all. My name is Ava, and I was a freelance tech journalist turned reluctant chronicler of events that shook the core of our understanding of fear and the unknown. I was walking through the desolate park of Redgrove, searching for solace from the creeping dread that had started to consume the town, when the first news of the Mars mission's failure reached us. The first manned mission to the Red Planet had ceased communication, its last transmission a harrowing garble of screams and static. Weeks later, a rescue team composed of young astronauts, among them the brilliant but headstrong pilot Damien and the enigmatic biologist, Zoe, were dispatched. Upon their return, they were different, haunted by what they had found and brought back something sinister within them. The rescue ship, the Copernicus, had found the Mars vessel, the Ares, in a decaying orbit around Mars. Its hull was scarred, a silent testament to an unknown struggle. The Copernicus crew had boarded the Ares to find a ghost ship. Personal belongings were scattered, equipment smashed, walls etched with markings that suggested a descent into primal fear. I remember sitting in a coffee shop, poring over the interviews, recordings, and notes from the rescue mission. I could almost feel the oppressive silence that the team spoke of as they explored the empty corridors of the Ares. Damien recounted with a detached horror how they had found the ship's logs. The Mars crew had unearthed the pathogen, an ancient organism from the Martian soil that did not just infect the body but the mind. Paranoia took hold, hallucinations of unspeakable creatures stalking the crew, whispers of ancient Martian devils in the darkness. The logs ended with the crew barricading themselves in the command module, speaking in tongues, performing what could only be described as exorcisms, and using the Martian soil as some unholy relic. There were exorcism deaths, bodies twisted in unnatural positions, faces locked in silent screams. It was in my own home that the dread truly took hold, as I was reviewing the footage from the Copernicus's return. In the background of a medical bay video, a shadow flickered, impossible, yet undeniably there. The pathogen was not confined to the Ares, it had come home with the rescue crew. Unexplained deaths began to plague Redgrove. People were found in their homes, eyes wide with terror, marks on their bodies that mirrored the descriptions from the Mars crew. The town was on the brink of madness. I was driving past the Redgrove clinic when I saw Zoe, staring out the window with eyes that saw too much. She had started to show signs of infection, speaking in disjointed sentences, her lucid moments filled with warnings of what was to come. The Martian pathogen induced violent hallucinations, the infected trapped in a living nightmare. The rescue team, sworn to silence by the government, could only watch as the infection spread. I decided to document everything, to compile a story that would reveal the truth. But as the pieces came together, the story became a creepypasta, spreading across the internet like the pathogen through veins. The last transmission was whispered in forums, a tale to chill the blood of those who read it. It happened to me one night, the feeling that something was watching, waiting. I could hear the distant screams of the Mars crew, the rasping breaths of the rescue team. The pathogen was a ghost in our midst, a specter of the red planet that had found a new home. Redgrove never recovered from the summer of 2004. The streets are quiet now, too many homes empty, too many questions without answers. I am one of the few who stayed, who remember what happened when the last transmission from Mars was received and the silence that followed. The shadows in Redgrove grow longer with each passing day, and sometimes, when the wind howls through the empty streets, it carries the faintest echo of a scream from millions of miles away, a chilling reminder of the horrors that came back from the red planet. Story number 5. The Cold Embrace Whispers of the Everdream. The year was 2005, a year when my life veered into the pages of a horror story that unfolded not in the shadows of some derelict mansion but in the infinite darkness of space. My name is Leo, and I was a systems engineer aboard the cryoship Everdream. I was meant to sleep through the decades, but fate had a twisted design. I was jolted awake by a system malfunction, the chilling realization that I was alone, the only conscious soul amid a vessel of dreamers, cast adrift in the void. The ship, designed as a sanctuary, became my prison. For weeks, I maintained a routine, pretending normalcy in the vast silence. I was walking the length of the Everdream daily, speaking to the unhearing occupants of the cryopods, maintaining the illusion of sanity. That's when the whispers began. At first, they were just misheard noises, the ship settling, or the hum of life support systems. But slowly, they morphed into voices, murmurs that seemed almost familiar, yet chillingly alien. It was as if the cold itself had found a voice. My descent into madness was not silent. It was accompanied by shadows in the corners of my eyes, figures that would vanish when I turned to face them. The onboard AI, meant to be my lifeline, became a mocking oracle, its responses nonsensical or eerily prescient. Among the sea of frozen faces, one in particular began to draw my fixation, Alara, a young biologist with a serene expression that seemed to mock my growing unease. I would find myself talking to her, pleading for a sign, an acknowledgement of the horrors that began to seep into the edges of my reality. The temperature aboard the ship began to fluctuate. Warm corridors would suddenly drop to freezing, a cold embrace that felt almost sentient. I started to see figures, clearer now, people I had known, or perhaps never met, all whispering about the entity that resided in the ship with us. I tried to record my experiences, Video logs that started as scientific observations but degraded into ramblings filled with terror. The videos captured things I could not see with my naked eye, figures passing behind me, objects moving of their own accord, the cryopods seeming to breathe. The climactic horror came when I decided to face the entity. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and a desperate need for the truth, I ventured into the core of the ship, where the whispers were loudest. What I found was not something that science or reason could explain. The air shimmered with an ethereal glow, and there stood a figure, or the suggestion of one, shapeless yet distinctly human. It whispered about the loneliness of the cosmos, the desperation of the dreamers, and the hunger of the void. It was not a ghost or a demon but something older, a consciousness that predated the stars themselves. I remember fleeing, the ship blurring around me as I collapsed by Alara's cryopod. When the rescue team found me years later, they discovered a man aged beyond his years, clutching the hand of a cryopod that had malfunctioned and frozen solid. Back on Earth, in the suburbs where I once dreamed of stars, I tried to bury the memories. But the videos of my ordeal became fodder for a viral creepypasta, the tale of the man who woke up in space and met the cold embrace. The story spread like a chilling wind, and I, its unwilling protagonist, live in the shadow of that dread encounter, knowing what waits in the silence of space, a whisper, a shadow, a cold that seeks to entwine with the warmth of life. Each time I close my eyes, I'm back on the ever-dream, walking its corridors, hearing the whispers. It happened to me, and through the digital echoes of my story, it happens to others, a never-ending cycle of fear, a cold embrace from the depths of space solitude. Story number 6. The Phantom Star Echoes of the Eventide. I remember 2006 as if it was yesterday, not because of the sweetness of youth but because of the darkness that engulfed it. My name is Jenna, and I was the astrophysicist on the Lightspeed research vessel Eventide. Our mission was clear-cut, to investigate a rogue signal that defied every law we knew. This is my account of the harrowing ordeal, of shadows cast not by light but by darkness itself. We were a crew of 5, all under 30, hailed as prodigies. There was Marco, our pilot, with hands steady as rock, Lila, the engineer, whose laughter filled the halls, Ree, the biologist, always curious, and Tanya, our communications expert, who first detected the signal. It began as a curiosity, a scientific anomaly. We approached the coordinates where this phantom star was said to exist, and that's when reality twisted like a kaleidoscope. I was walking through the hall to the bridge when I saw her, myself, staring back at me with hollow eyes. The ship duplicated around us, corridors forking like quantum threads. We faced ourselves again and again, doppelgangers silent but for their accusing stares. Each version of the Eventide was slightly different, a picture of our ship in disarray, in destruction, in madness. Deaths followed, inexplicable and violent. Marco found himself sucked into the vacuum of space in one reality, only to be reborn into the next. Lila was electrocuted by her own hands. Ree succumbed to a disease that didn't exist in our world. And Tanya, she whispered secrets of the void before her voice was stolen by it. We were trapped in this ghostly star system, every iteration etched deeper into our psyches. The terror wasn't in death, it was in the rebirth, the knowledge that horror awaited and there was no end. I can still hear Ree's scream as he was torn apart by an unseen force, and I can still see Lila's vacant stare as she was resurrected, her memories a jumble of the past and present. The investigation that followed our eventual return was a farce. They said it was mass hysteria, that the void had stretched our minds until they snapped. Videos of our experiences, logs that we had kept, became the playground of horror enthusiasts. They didn't understand that the phantom star wasn't in space, it had nestled into our souls. The suburbs where I returned were supposed to be safe, a haven from the cosmic horrors we faced. Yet I could see the phantom star's light flickering in the night sky, a star that shouldn't be there. It called to me, whispered promises of revelations and terror. I recount this tale not as a warning, I'm past such naivete. I tell it to remind myself of the reality that once was, of the horror that now lives in my mind. It happened to me, to us, and through the retelling, it's happening again. I am driving myself deeper into the mystery, unable to escape the cycle of fear. Our story, The Phantom Star, lives on as a creepypasta, a digital ghost story that binds the readers in its loop. You may think it's just a story, but remember, every story comes from a seed of truth. And sometimes, that seed grows in the darkness, under the cold light of a star that should not exist. Story number 7. The Burning Silence Whispers of the Sun. It was supposed to be a routine observation. The year was 2007, and I was part of a youthful crew aboard Helios Station, a solar research facility orbiting close to the Sun. We were to monitor a minor solar flare, an ordinary task for us, the solar physicists in our prime. My name is Elijah, and I never imagined that our names would become etched in the annals of cosmic horrors. Our crew consisted of myself, the lead researcher, Kara, the systems engineer whose smile could outshine the bleakness of space, Alex, the medical officer with hands as skilled as they were gentle, Julian, the communications officer whose jokes echoed through the halls, and Sophia, the pilot whose bravery knew no bounds. I was walking through the narrow steel corridor to the observation deck when the sun unleashed its fury. We expected a solar whisper, but what came was a scream. The station rocked violently, circuits fried before our eyes, plunging us into a chaos of darkness and flashing emergency lights. Radiation sickness set in quickly. Kara vomited in the shadows, her silhouette a ghastly sight. Alex, weakened, tended to her with trembling hands, doses of anti-radiation meds dwindling. Julian worked feverishly to send out distress signals, his voice cracking as static answered his calls. Sophia tried to pilot us to safety, her brow drenched in sweat that sizzled upon touch with the console. The station became our oven, our tomb. The walls that protected us from the vacuum became the barriers trapping us with a star's wrath. We worked on repairs, but it was a desperate symphony of failing instruments and fading hope. The heat was unrelenting, a presence as real as a ghost breathing down your neck. We heard things, voices lost in the solar wind, cries of past solar observers who met their fate in the sun's embrace. Or perhaps it was the devil himself, speaking through the waves of radiation, calling us to join his inferno. We didn't just battle the elements. Shadows crept along the walls, figures that couldn't be there. Sophia swore she saw someone else at the helm, guiding us deeper into the sun's grasp. Alex mentioned a whispering patient, but when he turned, there was only empty space. In our last hours, as the station creaked and groaned under the celestial assault, we managed to send out a message, a solar-powered warning of the sun's newfound unpredictability. It was our final, gasping legacy. Back on Earth, in the suburbs that once promised a quiet life, the message was received. It sparked an investigation, an effort to piece together the last days of Helios Station. They found our logs, our frantic accounts of horrors both explainable and not. The tales spread, morphing into digital ghost stories that echoed the ancient fear of the sun, a god, a monster, capable of giving life and snatching it away. The official story spoke of a tragic accident, of brave scientists facing the unknown. But others knew. They whispered of our final, hellish days, of the devil worship they said must have cursed our mission, of the exorcism of humanity from a place it was never meant to be. I was the last to succumb, the heat peeling away my resolve as I whispered into the void, begging for a reprieve. It happened to me, to us. Now, it happens to those who listen, who read, who remember. We are the crew of Helios Station, bound forever to the sun's fiery whims, a cautionary tale that flares up when solar winds howl, reminding those who dare to reach for the stars of the cold, burning silence that awaits them. Story number 8. Echoes of the Void. I remember the day we found the derelict as though it were yesterday, though years have passed and I've aged a lifetime since. It was 2008, and I was a cocky young space salvager named Marcus, thinking I knew the vastness of space. My crew, a band of under 30 misfits like myself, included Lena, our pilot with nerves of steel, Toby, the engineer with a talent for fixing anything, Rachel, the historian obsessed with space lore, and Casey, the comms expert who could find a signal in a black hole. I was walking through the hollowed-out corridors of our own ship, the Nomad, when Lena's voice crackled over the intercom, something big in the asteroid belt. It's old, real old. The relic we found was a skeletal behemoth, a ghost ship from the dawn of interstellar travel. We entered it, the excitement of potential riches blinding us to the shadow of doom that lay over the vessel. The air inside was stale, thick with the dust of time. Our lights pierced the darkness, illuminating a world untouched for centuries. That's when the malfunctions began. Our equipment glitched, screens flickered, and the cold of the void seeped into our suits. It happened to me first. I heard my mother's voice, calling me back home to the suburbs where I grew up, a siren song that filled me with an aching nostalgia. The visions came next. I saw her in the corridors, her face begging me to stay. Toby was next. He saw his younger brother, heard his laughter, felt his presence so strongly he began to dismantle our own ship's engine, convinced it was the only way to stay with his lost kin. Rachel read logs that weren't there, spoke of the ship's tragic history as though she'd lived it. She whispered of devil worship, rituals to cheat death, carried out by the ancient crew, her eyes hollow with fear. Casey broadcasted distress signals to Earth, to a family that no longer existed, filling the void with pleas for help. Lena saw her first love, a phantom persuading her to pilot us into the infinite dark. We can be together, it promised, a devil's bargain. We became a crew possessed, each trapped in our own hellish hallucination, sabotaging our present for a past that was never there. When a rescue team found us, it was too late for Toby and Rachel. They were found in an embrace of death, while Lena had sealed herself in the cockpit, a frozen tableau of longing. I was the only one left, repeating a litany of madness, my voice a ghostly echo in the derelict ship. Back on Earth, they pieced together our story from the Nomad's damaged logs and my fractured tale. It became a creepypasta, a story whispered in the dark corners of the internet, a true scary story about a relic that wasn't a tomb but a trap, a mirror reflecting our deepest losses, our most desperate desires. Exorcism deaths, unexplained phenomena, the psychological ghosts that we carry, they say the ship was cursed, a note of cosmic malevolence. But I know the truth. It's not the ship that's haunted, it's us. We are the phantoms, haunted by life, by the world we leave behind. The derelict was just a catalyst, a reflection of the abyss that dwells in the human heart. And as I tell this tale, I was driving a car, back in the suburbs where it all began. I understand that the derelict is still out there, waiting for the next salvage crew, hungry for more souls to ensnare in its cold embrace. Story number 9. Whispers from the Void. I was just a rookie astrophysicist from a quiet suburb, my head filled with dreams of stars and the great beyond. That's when I became part of the crew for humanity's boldest journey, the Odyssey, a ship destined to exit the Milky Way. My name is Alex, and I still shudder at the memory of the events from 2009 that led me to share this story. There were 5 of us, all under 30, united by the common dream of reaching beyond. Jenna, the captain, had a steady hand and a steely gaze. Damien, the communications officer, could find a signal in a cosmic storm. Elise, our biologist, sought life in every corner of the universe. And Theo, our engineer, believed he could solve any problem given enough duct tape. I remember walking through the ship, a marvel of human ingenuity, feeling like we were on the verge of a new era. We laughed, shared stories, and looked into the abyss with wonder. But it was in the abyss that the horror found us. It started with whispers over our comms, soft and unintelligible. Damien tried to find their source, but the vastness of space offered no answers. As we traveled further, the whispers grew to screams, raw and tortured, as if the cosmos itself was in agony. Jenna ordered us to stay calm, but fear has a way of spreading through a ship like wildfire. Elise hypothesized about alien life, while Theo attempted to strengthen our signal to call for help that was light years away. And then, as we neared the edge of our galaxy, a nightmarish revelation struck us. The screams were our own. I was walking through the ship's corridor when Damien unveiled the chilling truth. the faster-than-light travel had ripped a tear in space-time, a window into our future. The Odyssey's logs, due to be transmitted back to Earth, were bouncing from that tear, and we were hearing the last, desperate moments of our future selves. Each scream was a death, each plea a chilling premonition. We tried to turn back, to outpace our fate, but the very fabric of reality was against us. One by one, we succumbed to the terror. Theo vanished into the engineering bay, his last words a whisper over the intercom. Elise locked herself in the lab, her screams joining the chorus of our future ghosts. Damien was found slumped over the comms console, a silent figure amidst the static. And Jenna. She stayed at the helm, her eyes fixed on the void, as if she could will us back to safety. The investigation on Earth pieced together our end from the fragmented logs and transmissions that made it home. Our story became a creepypasta, a dark tale whispered by those who dare to dream of space. It serves as a warning of the unspeakable horrors that lie beyond the veil of our reality. I was the only survivor, found in a catatonic state, clutching the ship's log like a lifeline. They say I was driving the Odyssey back, alone, the screams of my friends my only company. Now, back in the suburbs, I look up at the stars not with wonder, but with dread. For I know that out there in the cosmos, a scream is waiting for each of us, and sometimes, it's our own.